if I'm being honest, being in the present moment is scary. It is very uncomfortable. We all have emotions that sometimes feel like they're too much for us to experience. And if you are like me, where you are a very sensitive person and you tend to just feel everything all the time and feel it very strongly, most likely does feel like too much. And when we're in the flow of feeling, it very much does put us in a state of vulnerability, because if I'm in the present moment and feeling all of this love and feeling all of this gratitude or feeling all of this sadness and pain, I'm not in defense mode. I'm not in a mode of being able to protect myself should another threat arise in the moment. Okay, it's 9 a.m. I'm just kind of warming up my voice for the day. It's a little raspy. Woke up about 2-ish hours ago, but I've been reading and just chilling in bed. So still got the morning voice going on. Let me drink some water. Hold on. There we go. Coming off of 3 great days off of work. I love my off days. I love my job. Don't get me wrong. I love my restaurant. I love my coworkers, but it can be a very all-consuming job. Like, I go in and it's all about my work when I'm there, which, I mean, usually most jobs are kind of that way, but this is very much so that way. Oftentimes when I'm at work, I find myself almost like forgetting that like the night is going to end. I get to go home to my family and to my bed. And it feels like almost like when I go to work, I'm entering a whole new world. When I have days off, it almost feels like those last few days were me kind of reconnecting, like replugging or plugging back into my world, which is interesting because before I was working at this restaurant, I was doing Uber, and I really loved doing Uber. I don't know many people that say that, but I really enjoyed it. One of the main reasons was because I got to spend all day mostly by myself. Obviously, I was driving people around, but it was mostly time in the car by myself. So I was listening to audiobooks or podcasts or, YouTube videos, or I was very much in my own thoughts. Most of the time, these videos that I was listening to or the things that I were thinking about were very much like esoteric topics. They were me thinking about myself. That sounds really selfish. Me going inward even while I was driving, which is probably not safe at all, but it was time to myself. I was very much plugged into my own world almost all of the time. Working at the restaurant really does kind of pull me out of myself. It can be difficult to get back into that in a really comfortable way. When I know I have to go to work later in the day, I'm very much concerned about time. Been practicing letting go of being focused on the actual time of day. And when I have to work, it can be hard for me to kind of get into my zone with this information, sharing this information, and even tapping into it on a personal level, like doing my own personal spiritual practices. That's kind of what this video is about. I wanted to talk about being in the present moment and how when you lack being in the present moment, or when you're running from being in the present moment, it devalues your life. I feel strongly that when we are not willing to be present in our everyday lives, it creates a whole slew of issues for us. When I'm talking about being in the present moment, I'm talking about being aware of yourself and being aware of your world. The things that are around you, that surround you, that are a reflection of you. And I feel like when we're not in the present moment, we're kind of outside of ourselves, in a way of like, yeah, we're aware of ourselves. We're aware of what's going on around us, but there's a sense of detachment from it, or a wall between our spirit and our sense of self or our life or whatever. And when I originally filmed my video of what is Return to Sid, I was kind of talking about how I wanted this channel to touch on like practical spirituality, how to be spiritual in your everyday life rather than just when you're sitting on your mat and meditating and journaling. When I first started my active spirituality, where I was actively tapping into myself, not just kind of like playing with the idea, I wanted to spend hours every day sitting on my mat in meditation or journaling, reflecting, doing a lot of introspective work. And that's great. And I feel like in the beginning of everyone's journey, doing that is actually very important. However, you can only really do that for so long before it affects your ability to function in everyday life. And the reality is, while we are spiritual beings, we are here on earth for a reason. We are meant to be living life. And we can't just spend all day on our mats and in meditation unless we want to be Buddhist monks. And if that's what we want to do, that's totally fine. And you can absolutely go live that type of life. But the majority of us don't want to do that. Whether we want to admit that or not, most of us don't want to go live in a temple. We want to be able to live and function in this life that has been kind of laid out for us. We just want to live it in a way that feels very aligned with who we are. The act of being present very much so is a practice. And even after you kind of get good at it, it still is a practice. Like I've been meditating and journaling for years now. And I'm just now getting to the point where I'm like actively practicing a level of presence and faith in every moment of life. And again, it's not even in every moment. For me, personally, I've been in this space pretty much since the beginning of the year where I'm like genuinely basking in the glory of having done so much work. My mental state is like 1,000% better than it used to be in years past. I genuinely love myself and I genuinely enjoy my life. I'm seeing the value in the moments in my life, the people in my life, and I'm wanting to engage in my life. And obviously I've taken steps in this physical world that generated more momentum in the direction of creating the life that I want. And I've been really enjoying that. This kind of came to the forefront of my mind recently when my mom and my sister were here, and we had just such a great time the entire week that they were here. We did a lot of things, went on some different adventures. I plan on doing a vlog about that trip very soon. But we also were just relaxing. We were watching some movies together and just eating at home and cooking dinner sometimes. It was just really nice to have them here. And I spent most of the week very much present and consciously choosing to take in the love that I felt from my mom and my sister and my boyfriend, but also the love that I felt for my mom and my sister and my boyfriend, and the gratitude for having them here and in my space and getting to spend this time with them, having the time off of work to just be here, just be relaxing, to be resting. I was so grateful. But then the week after that, this past week, I became very aware of the contrast that I've experienced in my life thus far. Even though I've been enjoying the work that I've done, I realized I still have a lot of work to do, because even in the last few months, I have still lacked a lot of presence in my life. I have lacked gratitude for where my life is at this very moment. I was looking at photos in my phone, videos in my phone of the past, and it just like quite literally brought me to tears. I was like sobbing in my car one night, but I genuinely felt very sad and disappointed that I had missed out on all of these beautiful moments in my life, either because I wasn't physically there or because I mentally wasn't there. In that moment, I didn't appreciate it for what it was because my thoughts were elsewhere, or I was anticipating the future or fearful of the past or something causing me to separate myself from that moment. I think that we all do experience a level of dissociation from our lives. And the evidence of that is in these vices that we lean a little too heavily into in order to escape from the life that we currently have. If I'm being honest, being in the present moment is scary. It is very uncomfortable. We all have emotions that sometimes feel like they're too much for us to experience. And if you are like me, where you are a very sensitive person and you tend to just feel everything all the time and feel it very strongly, most likely does feel like too much. And when we're in the flow of feeling, it very much does put us in a state of vulnerability, because if I'm in the present moment and feeling all of this love and feeling all of this gratitude or feeling all of this sadness and pain, I'm not in defense mode. I'm not in a mode of being able to protect myself should another threat arise in the moment because I'm so caught up right here. I'm so in the moment. Also, when we are allowing ourselves to feel these feelings, we can't ignore them. If something feels off in your life, you're allowing yourself to feel whatever emotion is attached to this awareness of something being misaligned, it's very hard to ignore that. It puts you in that position of, what do I do about this thing that is misaligned? It absolutely is your higher self, your inner self, divine whatever, telling you that something needs to be changed. For the vast majority of us, we don't like change. We don't like unpredictability. We want to know what to expect. We don't want to have to worry about changing something. We don't want to worry about having to have the uncomfortable conversation with whoever. We don't want to have to quit our job and go out into the world and find another job that we are unfamiliar with. We don't want to be uncomfortable. Just talking about that made me think of Abraham Hicks and how she was saying that the feeling is enough, because at the end of the day, anything that we want to experience is really rooted in the desire to feel the feeling that we think that experience will give us. Well, that also kind of goes the same way on the other end of the spectrum, but kind of reversed of like, I don't want to feel uncomfortable, so I'm avoiding situations that make me feel uncomfortable. But it's almost like the avoidance of feeling that is what creates more of that. Does that make sense? If I'm afraid of being uncomfortable, if I'm afraid of having uncomfortable conversations, so I'm avoiding the uncomfortable conversation, what does that do? That kind of makes it even bigger and scarier in my mind, which creates more uncomfortability in me when I focus on it. So I just choose to escape it. I choose to lean into these other things that allow me to forget about that. But I never really forget about it, right? Because my soul is calling me to do something about it. There is no real way to run from it, except to constantly be immersed in something that allows me to forget. You see what I'm saying? It creates a vicious cycle. Have you ever, let me know in the comments if you know that one person that always has a comment about things that have nothing to do with them, right? Like you come around to a family event and you're talking about something in your life, and this family member or friend or whoever comes out of nowhere, and all of a sudden they have an opinion on something in your life that they don't even have anything to do with. They don't even really know anything about it. All that they know is what they just heard you talking about, and they have a whole passionate opinion about it. How many of you know somebody like that? I definitely know somebody like that. I definitely know that I've been somebody like that. Those are people who are, in a sense, escaping themselves. They're channeling their passion, their anger, their love, their whatever that they don't want to channel into their lives because that's uncomfortable, and channeling it into your life or channeling it into that situation that has nothing to do with them, that doesn't lead them anywhere except get them worked up, right? The reality is that society doesn't really set us up to be present. It kind of teaches us the opposite of presence. When you think about the media, first of all, the presence of the media itself, having social media, having the news, leaning into that is somewhat escapism, unless you're using it to connect to yourself or to connect to others. The vast majority of us aren't really using it for that. We're using it to read news, to read articles, to read comments, see posts, and engage in that information. And a lot of times that information isn't actually helpful to our forward movement in life, because your outer world reflects your inner world. Having social media is only bad because there's something in you that is pulling the bad out of social media, if that makes sense. Even still, there's a level of that is out of our control. We're constantly being shown, intentionally being shown content to pull us out of ourselves and out into the world, into the metaverse, into the meta that has nothing to do with us. And again, we just went through this pandemic that also promoted us not being together. Obviously, that was for a reason, right? And considered to be what was safe for us at the time. However, I know that for me, since the world has opened back up, I have felt very uncomfortable with going into big crowds and being around a lot of people, whether that's because I'm in my head thinking about, are these people sick? Are they going to get me sick? And not specifically with just COVID, but just in general. But then also I have this fear that I'm going to go into a public place and something's going to happen. Someone's going to come and or that there's going to be a bomb or something. I know that in a way that kind of sounds like an irrational fear, but we see it in the news all the time. People going into public spaces and not being able to leave. Even though, right, it makes sense for me to feel fearful based on what I've seen in the media, it also keeps me from going out and living life. It keeps me from connecting to people. I met this guy from Belgium, and he told me that because of the media, that Americans have this like defensiveness around them constantly, to where they're always expecting that someone has bad intentions or that something bad is going to happen. In America, people are always on guard. It very much so is the American way to be like, no, give me personal space. Don't get too close to me. I don't want to open myself up to you, and I don't want you to open yourself up to me, because that's too uncomfortable. It's dangerous. Those fears inevitably cause us to suppress our connection, to suppress our experiences out in the world, which is directly an example of our expression. And as Americans, we're also taught to multitask. We're taught to do several things at one time. But the truth is that when we're doing several things at one time, we can't do any of them to the best of our ability. We're constantly looking to innovate. We're constantly focused on time. How can I save time? How can I do this as fast as possible? We are taught that we should work hard now. We should fill our days with as much as possible, as much productivity as possible now, and then play later in our lives when we've earned it. When we've earned the right to play, then we get to play. I don't want to live like that. I don't want to have to wait to enjoy my life until after I quote unquote have earned it, and until after I've exhausted myself trying to do all of these things at one time, trying to constantly be improving. And the honest truth is that even in the personal growth space, even in the spiritual space, there is still that level of toxic productivity, or the need to constantly be improving. It very much teaches us that leaning into ourselves, leaning into the joy of life right now is not productive. It's not good for us. And we need to wait to do that until later. What happens if later never comes? What if you wait to enjoy your family, but by the time you're ready to enjoy your family's gone? What if you miss that opportunity? I know for me, in some instances, I have missed that opportunity. There are people who are no longer in my life who I don't get to connect with in that way anymore, right? I know we all have people like that. And so does it make sense for us to put these experiences, to put these people that we love, that we want to experience in our life, on the back burner until we're ready? No, it doesn't. Boys and girls, what did we learn about that? It's escapism. Our lives, the cards that we're dealt when we are brought into this world, is our uniqueness. And I'm not trying to say that any painful experiences that you have had aren't worth looking at. That's not what I'm saying at all. And in fact, if that's what you're getting from this conversation, then you're missing the point entirely. What I'm trying to say is that it all is meant to exist. The pain, the struggle, the happiness, the joy, the love, the freedom, like we're meant to experience all of it on different scales and in different phases of our life. There is no one person who has an entirely bad life. Everything in their life is just bad. Every single aspect, every single moment of their life is just bad. Nobody has that experience. And there is nobody in this life who has every moment being perfect, every moment being filled with love and joy and perfection. And nobody has that. Nobody has either of those extremes. We all have all of that mixed in. And mixed into every moment. In the same moment that you can feel great love and joy, you can also flip your perspective and experience great sadness and pain. There are some videos that I watch now that literally bring me to tears because I just feel so much love for the people in those videos. in those pictures, right? When in that same moment, when I was physically there, I didn't feel that way in that moment. Not that I didn't love them or didn't feel grateful for them, but I was elsewhere. I was mentally elsewhere, focused on the negative emotions that I was experiencing. I wanted to touch on the thoughts aspect of being a form of escapism or a distraction. Obviously, we have thoughts all the time, and we can't just never have thoughts. Like, some thoughts are necessary to have. They contribute to our forward progression in life. When it becomes, again, to the point of an addiction, of overthinking, of overanalyzing, that takes us out of the present moment. Here in America, we are a very analytical society. We like to be thinking constantly about all of these things. It's one of those things, one of those addictions, one of those vices that we might view as being a good thing, that we might praise people who are very analytical when really it can be at our detriment. Overworking. Gabby, God, what is her last name? Gabby. I can't think of her name, but her name's Gabby. I'm sure I'll put it on the screen somewhere. And she talks a lot about how there is a long period in her life, even in the midst of her spiritual journey, where work was her form of escapism. She was constantly working. She was constantly praised for having all of these achievements. Her work is centered around personal growth and spirituality, right? Things that help people. But she was so addicted to working in order to escape these deeper wounds that were within her. When she slowed down, the uncomfortable things came up and she had to look into them and get more uncomfortable in order to get to the other side. So work, overthinking, like, these are other versions of things that are vices for us. The gym is another great example. People who are addicted to the gym also are running from themselves. All of these examples, I can literally think of people in my life who are addicted to their thoughts. I can think of people who are addicted to work, people who are addicted to the gym, people who are addicted to social media. Like, I know people in my life who deal with that. Part of presence, part of awareness is being okay with accepting that I have those vices, that I am under the influence of those things, and that's just where I am in my life, and I can choose to change that and to change my life, get away from those things, or I can choose to continue living in that space, and sometimes I do choose to continue to live in that space. Part of acceptance and awareness is being okay with observing the people that you love in the midst of their own vices and addictions, and understanding that it is not your job to heal them. It is not your job to fight their battles for them, no matter how much you want to. So, what are the benefits of slowing down? What are some of the benefits that I've experienced in my journey of being present? When you slow down, you get to experience the life that you want to experience. Maybe not right away, but again, once you get that wheel going in the other direction, you get to consciously curate your own life and live a life that is aligned to you. Like, we all want that. It allows us to tap into this childlike approach of feeling awe for the life around us. It allows us to see the beauty in everything, in the good and the bad. The value in the good and the bad, the value in ourselves and our lives, the value in other people's lives as well. I have to pause this because this is going to overheat. So when I started filming again, the footage ended up being grossly out of focus. All you could see was the background and none of my face. So I'm just going to continue like this. With slowing down my thoughts and practicing presence, I've also noticed a heightened ability to hear and receive divine insights from God, source, spirit, universe, whatever you want to call it. When we slow down our thoughts, it creates the space for us to tap into the ether. It allows us to receive the divine inspiration, ideas, solutions to our problems, whatever it is we need for us to continue moving towards the life that we desire to live. And we all know that we could really use all the help we can get. I've also come to realize that we individually are fragments of the universe. meaning that what we observe within ourselves is also what we observe out in the world. The more I understand myself, I love myself, I accept myself and have grace for my path and my journey, the more I feel that way about the world around me and the people within it. Once we really develop our ability to observe objectively, that's when we truly are able to work in tandem with the physical and non-physical to create the life we truly desire. Erykah Badu said, "The universe doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what you are." So make sure you prioritize observing and understanding what you are in order to transform into who you want to be. So I hope this video was helpful for you, and please let me know down below if you would like me to post a part 2, basically sharing how I've practiced more presence in my life. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button for me and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss my next videos. Also, don't forget to share this with somebody who you think might really benefit from hearing it. Thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye. Okay, real quick, I just wanted to read this quote for you from this book I'm reading called The Creative Act by Rick Rubin, because I think it really kind of touches on everything I'm talking about here. He says, "Awareness is not a state you force. There is little effort involved, though persistence is key. It's something you actively allow to happen. It is a presence with and acceptance of what is happening in the eternal now. As soon as you label an aspect of source, you're no longer noticing, you're studying. This holds true of any thought that takes you out of presence with the object of your awareness, whether analysis or simply becoming aware that you're aware. Analysis is a secondary function. The awareness happens first, as a pure connection with the object of your attention. If something strikes me as interesting or beautiful, first I live that experience. Only afterward might I attempt to understand it." So maybe just sit with that and meditate on it and see how that can be better applied in your life. Okay, now bye for real.